Hi, I'm Heather, and for the final presentation, I will start off by talking about who I interviewed. I interviewed two people, and they are friends of one of my really good friends, both very successful in the e commerce, SEO field, marketing. One is an entrepreneur, and he has three separate businesses. So they're both very successful, and they live in San Diego, which is where I would like to move. So I want to go into sales and I'm most likely it's kind of up in the air, but I do want to move there. So I figured that I could learn a little bit about what they do, which seemed pretty relevant to what I would like to do after school. And maybe they could help me get an in there as well. So a little bit of obviously, I think that it's okay that I had some other ideas of what I wanted out of it other than just learning information about the interview. Um, I wanted to hear about their story of success because I feel like that's the best way to kind of figure out what you want to do is just take bits and pieces of people that you find successful and try to emulate that. Um, I had hoped to learn more about their jobs, but what I ultimately found out is how difficult it is to interview people. I have interviewed quite a few people for jobs in my job. So I kind of thought that it would be similar to that. But as the interview started, I was actually a lot more nervous than I had anticipated versus, when you're going and getting interviewed, I'm really scared before. And then once I get in there, I'm a little bit more seasoned and warmed up and I don't feel as nervous. So that was a little bit different that I learned. With Claire, I learned a lot about SEO and e-commerce because we were very focused on that. My questions, I thought were pretty specific. So, and she was very thorough in her answers. So, it was a little bit more difficult to find follow-up questions than it was my second interview. And I don't know a lot about SEO and e-commerce, so not having a large understanding of that made it difficult and probably made me more nervous. And I felt kind of like a podcaster who needed to research the guests that they had on their show a little bit more than they did. So that was interesting. And with Nicholas, my second interview, I felt a lot more calm, but I think it's because I was expecting the nervousness a little bit more than in the first interview. He taught me a lot about business, and I was expecting that, but he said a lot of very profound things, which I wasn't expecting. So it was a super fun interview. I learned so much from them that really exceeded my expectations. And then I learned a lot about myself in the process. I can definitely work on my interview skills. And I, I thought I really had it in the bag at first before I began. I'll move to question two and something I learned that surprised me. You know, Nicholas said a lot of very profound things, including, he said, start small, fall in love with the process and not the product, and to not get too attached to things. And mainly he was saying that in regard to entrepreneurship, which we all, we've all have ideas. I definitely have some ideas. So it was inspiring talking to him. Claire did an awesome job in how she held herself. She does a lot of meetings online. And when I was watching the video over again, I was like, I kind of want to emulate how she's doing it because she looked very professional and she looked really good and calm and confident. Another thing that surprised me is Nicholas was talking about CBD and the regulations behind it because he has a CBD company. I had no idea. He sells it on Amazon too, and they are very strict. You can get flagged and shut down on as far as the sales on there very easily. But he said that it's actually a good thing because that CBD is so regulated on Amazon and sales in general because it keeps the market from being flooded. It keeps people from starting to do it. So that was interesting to hear about. Also, another interesting thing was recording sounds so different from a real-time conversation. So it's you learn a lot more about how you actually sound when you're watching a recording. For number three, I needed to read through my questions a little bit more thoroughly. I had two screens up for my first interview, two computers. And so for my second interview, I chose to use a piece of paper. And I believe that when somebody's looking at a screen, I think you can tell. So I think that was a better idea. I need to sound more confident. I do the ums and ahs thing. And then when I would ask a question, I would find myself trailing off. My voice would be like kind of, I would just trail off and I didn't sound confident. I felt I should have ended with a period, not being like, did you think that? Or da da da. And I would kind of go into more of a question on a question. It was weird. So I'm going to work on that. I felt like a burden to them. So I tiptoed around the scheduling part. They were happy to do it. So I felt bad. So I was like, hey, on your time. And then I feel like I wish I would have gotten the interviews done a lot earlier and taken more initiative, because I'm sure they would have liked that as well. Because eventually when I did that, it was very easy to get them to agree to a time. I researched their businesses and looked at their websites, and I maybe wish I would have done it a little bit more, because after the interview started, I thought I felt prepared, but I didn't. And my questions were there, but I was realizing I didn't really have a great understanding of what, one of their companies was. So maybe I would have done a little bit more research. Page 307 talks about transitions. I seemed disinterested and obvious, I feel like, a couple times, because I was trying to get to the next question and get through stuff. Again, Claire was very thorough in her answers. So that was a little difficult. But, page 307 talks about how it transitions a word or a phrase that guides the audience or the listener from a point to another. And I just didn't even realize how difficult that would be in the interview process. Both interviews were so different and interviewees are so different. So it's hard to prepare without doing it. I need to just continue to do interviews and practice and listen to myself. Page 293, and honestly, every chapter, the E in keys, evaluating our professional context and who we're presenting to. We're scripted. We're presenting to these people because we have our questions. We have, we're trying to guide them through. So I think that I may have come across too formal in my first interview and not relaxed enough, especially because Claire did mention that I did seem nervous in her evaluation, because she sent it to my email and not the instructors. So I saw it. But I was definitely more relaxed with Nicholas. Other insights, body language. I seemed so scared when I was doing Claire's interview. I had a pen in my hand and I was like going like this. I had pen on my hand afterwards and my shoulders were kind of hunched. 327 of our textbook says to practice body language that conveys casualness and confidence. And I looked nervous. It probably made her feel strange, and you can just see and tell that. So I want to work on that. I was surprised by my level of anxiety. I knew it might be a little bit nerve-wracking, but that was good to know. So we can, know how to respond to that adrenaline rush and know how to work through it. Conversations that are recorded, again, sound really strange, but it provided me with so much feedback and things that I want to improve on. As a speaker, as somebody who participates in any conversations on a daily basis, and I want to speak slower to allow more time to collect my thoughts. There's so much room to improve on. I'm definitely going to take a deep breath before the next interview, but this process was great, and I'm really happy that I was prompted to do it.